now it is time for Laura Pavlakovich. Laura, you were just mentioned by Emma. I don't know if you knew that she was going to come on, but she was just talking about you having met 25 years ago in camp. Do you remember that?
Of course, I just went through my phone and I found photos of us from when we were little girls, but this actually draws everything together because let me just go into this because I'm still like shaking from her coming on the screen. We did see each other about 6 years ago, but I had no idea. So I run a nonprofit called You're Just My Type, and we host meetups every single month. And when I was younger, my parents started a support group for type 1 diabetics in our area called the Hot Shots. And that's how I met Emma. And we were little girls just running around, and we got to hang out at camp every summer, but then also hang out at these monthly meetups and then at each other's houses. And it really instilled how important to me year-round support is rather than waiting 12 months to see your diabetic friends. And seeing her really just like, my heart is still pounding. It's been so long. But this showed me too that when you're younger, especially when you're get to hang out with people like you feel normal for the first time in your life. It's the first time you're surrounded by others like you. So that is really, really special.
Yeah, I think it's great that Dog Day makes these kind of personal connections as well, and you found each other.
We had no idea until this morning, so it's very
beautiful,
nice.
beautiful. You should definitely get in touch again and
We
see
will.
what suits you. But tell me a little bit about Just My Type 1. I know you as an Instagram account with 40,000 followers, but you just started to explain where it started, and tell me what you are doing now.
So I started the Instagram account about 6 years ago in 2016, and it was just a passion project. I went to a photojournalism program, and I really wanted to do something important with my photography. I felt really stuck, and I had the idea to start photographing other type 1 diabetics and share their stories online. And that actually happened because I happened to be, speaking of kismet, I happened to be at a wedding one time and I was talking to the photographer of the wedding, and she did not know I had type 1 diabetes and I did not know anything about her life. And she told me that she had to leave the wedding early because her son was 4 years old and was just diagnosed with this thing called type 1 diabetes, and that he cries himself to sleep every night because he thinks he's the only person living with it. And as soon as I heard this, like everything stopped for me. And I was like, this is what I need to do. I need to show little boys like this and other people like him faces to look at instead of numbers. Because you can only show kids statistics on a computer so many times. They're not going to understand. So that started this whole project of me photographing other people living with type 1 diabetes, sharing their stories. The Instagram account grew very quickly. I was photographing everyone personally in the beginning, but once COVID started, I started letting people submit their own photos and stories, which gave us a huge advantage because then we were getting people from all over the world for the first time.
So a school project and a wedding led to a now 40,000 some strong Instagram community, which I think is amazing.
I can't believe it. I think what happened, every time I would post someone, they would post it to their page to share it. And then we would get their type 1 followers, and then we'd post the next person and they would post it. And it's just really cool to see how much the community has grown.
Now, fast forward, Laura, tell me what happened when COVID struck. You already said you had people send in pictures, so that was one change, but there's something else. You started face-to-face peer support, which is kind of weird to start that during COVID, especially, I'm saying this from my perspective. We were just talking in the beginning about our EASD symposium last week, and we were talking about how peer support moved from face-to-face interaction to all virtual during COVID. You seem to have done it the other way around. How come?
We did the opposite, yes. It was a decision I definitely questioned multiple times before we did it. And when I started planning, COVID wasn't as bad as it was. So I'm like, everything's going to be fine. And it continued to get worse. And I kept questioning, is this really the time to be planning our first in-person mental health event? And I asked myself that every day. But I kept hearing these voices and people who supported what I was doing saying, this is the time that these people need an event like this. And the first one we did was for young girls living with type 1 diabetes, and they were between the ages of 12 and 17. We had a fully type 1 female mental health staff. So we had a type 1 behavioral therapist, social worker, a nutritionist, yoga instructor. And doing that one for the first time and hearing these young girls speak about how some of them had just been diagnosed like the day they found out COVID had started. And they needed an event like this more now than ever. And it really just reassured me that we had made the right decision. We obviously had to take a ton of safety and health precautions, but we were masked, we took temperature checks, we had COVID tests done. So we made it work, and it just opened up my eyes to how it just reminded me how important this type of support is. So after we did that event during COVID, we got this outpour. I was only going to do young girls originally, and we got this outpour of support saying, well, what about younger boys? What about adults? What about women? And I was like, okay, I hear you. So from since then, we've done 7 events. We just had one last Saturday. We've done 2 adult meetups, a women's event, a young boys. We have another one next month. And every event we do each month is very mental health forward. And we like to have type 1 mental health guest speakers. We have group breakout sessions and activities. And I'm very happy we switched to in person.
Beautiful. And I'm sure it gives you another opportunity to then take more pictures and write more stories on your Instagram account. So I'm sure the two things mutually reinforce each other. Right. And I hope we will see a lot more happy faces that you can show to kids that do not want to see statistics, or other ones who will just be inspired by what you do.
Exactly. And we're still accepting submissions from anyone all over the world as well. If anyone wants to submit their story, you can do that on our website. You're just
make sure you drop all your accounts in the Facebook.
I will.
People will find you.
Because we love sharing stories from all over the world so much. Hopefully these meetups and events will go international. That's the plan. So
that would be great. So that's Laura from Just My Type 1. Laura, there's one more thing I have to ask you, because I know the logo of your Instagram account, and I saw it just a while ago in a Netflix series. How did that happen? Not a Netflix film, actually. I mean, that's quite major. How did that happen?
If you were to have asked me when I was designing that logo, if I ever thought that would make it into the mainstream media on the TV, I would have laughed. Netflix made a movie called Purple Hearts, starring about a girl with type 1 diabetes, and they had reached out to me in the making of their film because they found a piece I had done for the New York Times. So I helped them with their script and read over some of the diabetes scenes, and they thought it would be fun and like a little gift for me to put my logo on the main character's car in the movie. I didn't know anyone else would notice it. But it was definitely a fun little surprise.
I think we need to work on having more diabetes logos, etc., on Netflix and Amazon Prime and other.
I agree. This was a little small victory, and I only hope for more stuff like this as well.
Well, not many people will recognize it probably, but those who know, and that includes everyone here at Doc Day now, right, will now go see that movie and wait for that bumper sticker to show up.
You got to be quick, but it's there.
Laura, thank you very much for joining us today. I have to apologize for being so late and you had to wait for so long because we went terribly over time, but it was great to have you here. And now go say hello to Emma.
I will. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining.